There's something eerie about silence in a marriage. Not the comforting kind that comes from knowing each other so well that words become optional. No, this was different. This was the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl late at night. The kind that hums just beneath the surface when your partner walks past you like your furniture. When eye contact becomes accidental. When laughter vanishes and routines replace intimacy. It started subtly. Eric, my husband of 8 years, used to be so open. He'd leave his phone face up on the counter, his laptop unlocked, casually scrolling memes and sending me funny links. I used to wake up to good morning texts even when he was lying beside me. We'd binge watch old sitcoms, cook together, dance in the kitchen, the small things that kept us tethered. But over time, the little gestures faded. I noticed the first shift when he suddenly changed his phone password. No explanation, just a shrug when I asked. Then came the sudden bathroom trips, always with the phone. The work calls at 9 p.m. The half-finished conversations and mysterious smirks aimed at his screen. I'd ask who he was texting, and he'd just say, just a group chat, nothing exciting. But he never turned the screen my way. He'd come home smelling faintly of perfume I didn't wear. Once, I saw a notification flash, just a glimpse, something from Reddit. But it disappeared before I could process it. I dismissed it at the time. Who cheats on Reddit? It sounded ridiculous. But that's the thing about betrayal. It hides behind the ridiculous. It camouflages itself in what we believe to be harmless. Soon, we were roommates more than lovers. He'd kiss me on the forehead instead of the lips. We'd lie in the same bed but feel like we were sleeping in separate countries. When I'd talk, he'd scroll. When I'd cry, he'd sigh. I told myself it was just a rough patch, that every marriage goes through phases. But no matter how many excuses I crafted for his distance, the ache in my chest never went away. That ache became a whisper that grew louder every day. Something isn't right. Something's wrong. And yet, I stayed silent. Until one Friday evening, something inside me snapped. He was out getting drinks with a client. I sat alone in our living room, eating leftovers from the night before, staring at the family photos we'd taken just last year on vacation. He had his arm around me, beaming. I looked so happy, so sure, so fooled. I replayed that image over and over, my fingers clenching tighter around my fork. Suddenly, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was screaming. And in that moment, I realized something important. Maybe I couldn't fix this marriage. Maybe I didn't want to, not if I was the only one trying. So I stood up. Walked into the bedroom. And stared at his phone resting on the nightstand like a loaded weapon. He'd never leave it unattended before. But this time, it was just there. Unlocked. Vulnerable. Exposed. My hands trembled, but my resolve didn't. I picked it up, and with that, the facade of our marriage began to crumble. Because what I found wasn't just a betrayal. It was a world he built without me. A world filled with secrets, strangers, and confessions I was never meant to see. And from that moment on, I knew everything would change. I had no idea what I was even looking for, maybe just reassurance that I was being paranoid, that this ache in my chest was just anxiety and not reality. But once I unlocked his phone, the truth didn't trickle in. It flooded. There was no cheating app, no hidden folder titled Secrets, no suggestive text with names like Ashley from work. No, Eric was smarter than that. He knew how to lie like a gentleman. But what he hadn't counted on was Reddit. His Reddit app was buried in a folder labeled News. I almost missed it. But the moment I opened it, I could feel my heartbeat shift. It auto-logged in. No password prompt. Just a username in the corner, Midnight Confessor 84. And then I saw it. Posts. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. And not the kind about sports or tech or harmless memes. He was active in subreddits I'd never even heard of, r/dead bedrooms, r/marriage advice, r/adultery confessions, r/polygon wrong. My hands began to shake. One post read, "Wife barely touches me anymore. Starting to think the girl I met at the gym might be more than a fantasy." Another, "She's boring now. I miss being wanted. I miss feeling alive." He never used my name, but the details were unmistakably us. The timelines matched. The references were personal. He called me the roommate, the dead weight, the woman who used to be fun. But that wasn't the worst of it. The comments. Oh God, the comments. Dozens of women responding, sympathizing, flirting. A few usernames appeared again and again, replying to everything he wrote, as if they were building something together. As if this whole time, he wasn't just writing confessions, he was courting other people in plain sight. One comment thread turned my stomach. He'd written, "I think she suspects something, but she'll never do anything. She's too soft, too afraid of being alone." Someone replied, "Then she doesn't deserve the truth. Keep living your life." And he'd upvoted it. That tiny gesture broke me more than anything else. Because it wasn't just lies. It was contempt. He didn't just cheat, he enjoyed outsmarting me. He turned our marriage into content, our life into clickbait. And suddenly, I wasn't crying. I was cold, focused, wired. This wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. This was warfare. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront him that night. No, I was going to play along, smile, kiss his cheek, pretend I knew nothing. Because if Eric thought I was too soft to fight back, then he had no idea who he married. For the next week, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. I played my role with perfect precision, the doting, slightly oblivious wife who asked nothing and suspected even less. I kissed him good morning. I packed his lunch. I laughed at his terrible jokes, complimented his shirts, even offered spontaneous intimacy, which, ironically, he declined most nights with some half-hearted excuse. It stung, yes. But every time I felt that sting, I smiled through it, because I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was a spy in enemy territory. While he slept, I created a burner Reddit account. I combed through his posts, archived everything. Screenshots, timestamp threads. I even backed up his private messages, including dozens exchanged with a married woman from our /secret affair zone. Her username was Soft Velvet Dreams, and her bio said she was trapped in a loveless marriage. Well, wasn't that poetic? Their messages were explicit. Not just physical, but emotional. She sent pictures. Not nudes, worse. Candid selfies. A photo of her making pancakes with a caption that read, "Made these and thought of you." A blurry sunset from her porch that said, "Wish we were watching this together." And his replies? Full of longing. Full of promises. He told her he felt more alive with her than he had in years. That he was going to leave me soon. That we didn't love each other anymore, and we were just going through the motions. I stared at that sentence for a long time. We were just going through the motions. Maybe it was true, for him. But I had believed in our life. I had built it. And he was willing to throw it all away, not for passion, not even for lust, but for the idea of being adored again. I learned her real name was Heather. She had 2 kids and a mortgage, and she worked part-time at a yoga studio. I found her Instagram, then her Facebook. Then, with a little digging, her husband. He looked like a good man, regular guy, proud dad, smiling in every family photo. His name was Mark. I stared at his face and thought, you deserve to know. But not yet. Not until I had everything in place. And so I kept playing the game. I made his favorite meals. I smiled in bed. I watched him lie to my face with eyes I used to trust, and I memorized every tick, every flinch, every tell. Because my silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. It was a crisp Saturday morning when everything aligned, like fate had silently opened a door and was now waiting for me to walk through it. Eric had just stepped out to hit the gym, which was, as I now knew, code for meeting Heather at a motel on the east side of town. I waited exactly 20 minutes, the amount of time it would take him to get fully occupied, before setting the wheels in motion. I had packed a single duffel bag. Not for me, for him. Everything he truly owned in that house could fit into one bag. A few ratty t-shirts, his razor, his smartwatch, and the lucky socks he always wore on date nights, with her, apparently. I dropped the bag right inside the garage. I had already changed all the locks. Then I texted him, "Don't bother coming home. Your things are in the garage. Divorce papers are with my lawyer." For 5 minutes, silence. Then my phone buzzed like a dying insect, texts, calls, more texts. Voicemails. Angry, then pleading, then angry again. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen. While his phone lit up, I hit send on a carefully drafted email addressed to Mark, Heather's husband. It contained a polite subject line. "You deserve to know." Inside? Screenshots. Reddit threads. Saved voice messages. A timeline. Dates. Times. And finally, a link to a private photo album titled, "Not Just an Online Fantasy." I hesitated just 1 second before sending it. Not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to savor the moment. This wasn't just revenge. This was truth wrapped in fire. By noon, Eric showed up, banging on the door like a man unhinged. "Open the damn door, Jenna. We can talk about this." I opened the upstairs window and calmly replied, "You wanted out. You found someone else? Now go live with your choice." He stood there in shock, probably realizing for the first time that the woman he betrayed was smarter, faster, and colder than he ever imagined. And then, cherry on top, I told him, "By the way, Heather's husband should be reading your love notes right about now. Hope it was worth it." He stared up at me, mouth open, and I swear I saw his knees buckle. That was the last time I saw Eric in person. But the aftermath? That was just beginning. You'd think the silence after exposure would bring peace. But betrayal doesn't go quietly, it echoes. The next few days were pure chaos, though none of it touched me. Not directly. Heather's husband, Mark, apparently went nuclear. According to mutual acquaintances, he stormed out of their home that very night after reading every filthy message, every detail of her lies. They said he didn't yell, didn't cry. He just packed a suitcase, took their daughter, and left a single note behind. "I hope he was worth your family." Heather's world collapsed overnight. She tried texting me, can you believe that? A full paragraph of, "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," and "Eric said you were cold, distant," as if her lack of a spine was my fault. I didn't respond, but I did take a screenshot, just in case. Eric, on the other hand, spiraled. He lost his job 2 weeks later. Not because I outed him, but because he couldn't concentrate, couldn't show up. And let's face it, his idea of multitasking was juggling lies, not responsibilities. Friends? Gone. Most of them were mine anyway. And the few who stayed with him, well, let's just say they weren't the type to send sympathy cards. He tried guilt. Sent me old photos of our wedding. Asked if I remembered how we used to be. I didn't reply. I didn't even look twice. Because I did remember, and I wasn't going to let nostalgia rewrite the past. I was finally sleeping through the night. Finally eating without a lump in my throat. Finally walking past mirrors without feeling like a shadow of myself. You see, when you cut out the infection, healing begins. And as painful as it was to burn it all down, I was starting to feel warm again from my own fire. But just when I thought it was over, life handed me a new opportunity. One final move that would end this entire chapter with the kind of poetic justice only reality could deliver. And believe me, I took it. A few weeks passed. Life settled into a quiet rhythm. I wasn't rebuilding. I was reinventing. Therapy helped. Long walks helped. The simple act of waking up without dread helped most of all. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from Heather's now ex-husband, Mark. Subject line, "Thank you." And, "You might want to see this." Inside, a short message. "You saved me more than you know. I thought you might enjoy this little twist of fate." Attached was a screenshot of a public Reddit thread. Someone had posted about losing their job, their home, and the love of their life, blaming a vengeful ex-wife who ruined everything. The username, TrueHurts_Eric89. I laughed, out loud. Alone in my kitchen with a coffee in hand, I actually laughed until I cried. He hadn't changed. He hadn't grown. He hadn't learned. But I had. And I was thriving. I started documenting my story, not out of spite, but empowerment. I turned my pain into a voice. People started messaging me, sharing their own betrayals, their own small victories. I became something I never expected, free. One night, I walked past the mirror, stopped, looked at myself, not with regret, but with pride. This woman? She didn't just survive betrayal. She dissected it, burned it down, and built something beautiful from the ashes. And as for Eric, let him rot in the house of lies he built. Alone, unloved, unheard, because I was done playing the victim. Now, I was the author, and the final chapter was mine.